Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and this is your end of day video for Friday, February 5th. Also, end of week. We also like to go ahead and summarize the week performance, so we'll do that in this video. I'm reading a headline that's just crossing Bloomberg. Whatever you hear me pause, it's because I've got my eyes on something else. Apple talks on electric car with Hyundai, Kia paused recently, so I don't know. I guess I got a pop on that earlier in the week. So let's let me get undistracted. I'm making up words here. So performance for the day, a nice follow through, right? The indices all fractionally higher, but again, there's a lot of trading opportunities, and it's kind of crazy because even after this week, which the S&P had a huge week, the markets had a huge week, still seeing some things that look pretty good, and I think that's because not every name is going, all the way up to 52-week highs and so forth. There's some names that are definitely stretched, but there's still some things that look that look pretty interesting and that haven't exactly, broken out crazy to the upside. So, I think I continue to kind of trade, to trade disciplined. But it's difficult. I mean, it is really difficult with the amount of trade setups that we're seeing to, I like to do things like after 3, 4, 5 day rally, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, I guess we kind of paused here at the top of value on Wednesday, but all in all, I like to be selling into the strength as much as possible, and especially like Friday. These Fridays have been kind of difficult, but today was pretty damn easy. It was a pretty nice trading day. And usually Thursdays and Fridays towards the end of the week, I like to be doing more selling. And I'll tell you, it's just been very difficult because we're just seeing a lot of option flow that's kind of pointing me in the direction of certain trades. And just like I said, the setups, right? So, we'll talk a little bit about that in this video, but monster week. Here, I'll do something different. I'll summarize the week's performance first because I mentioned I mentioned the performance for the week was really extraordinary. Let me see if I can zoom in here a little bit. There you go. S&P up almost 5% for the week. Look at the small caps. They were up almost 8% for the week. Q's up 5%. EEM 5.5%. International developed markets were up 3.2%. And then, of course, look at what happened over here. Silver down 2.6%. Gold was down 1.6%. Best performing sectors. The Chinese internet names were up 10% this week. What a week. That was something that I did put in the TTG Trend Portfolio as well. Sorry, not the Trend Portfolio, but the watch list program. We'll talk about that in this video too, in case you don't know what I'm referring to if you're not a member of the Tribeca Trade Group. I've got 3 different programs, right? So we'll get to this. Let me just bring up this, and then I'll come back to this. So let me just go to our resources channel. All right. So here's our programs. We've got a lot of stuff very organized in here, but of course, the numbers that I tweet out every month are my trading account numbers. Nice week for the trading account. Feeling pretty good about that this week. And then we also do things. So this is what I'm mostly focused on during the week is my trading account. But I also put together this weekly watch list, right, where I buy in the beginning of the week, sell at the end of the week, right? And that's a nice way to kind of just have names on for the week, and then I unwind them at the end of the week, and I go into SPY for the weekend, right? So I'm always holding something with this particular trade, right? It's a new type of thinking that I've developed here, and it's done pretty damn well. Right, so we had another strong week with that, and then I have the TTG Trend Portfolio, which is a list of names. Right now, it's about 34 names. We did a rebalance today, put some new areas of the market in there, so I'm excited about that. But yeah, those are the 3 different things. So I monitor this, a couple times a week. right? Because this is like more of a long-term portfolio. We've got great for part-time traders. The trading account, obviously, I'm all over that during the week, and then the weekly watch list trade. So I'll get to that in just a second. But let's go back to the trades channel that we have here in Slack. And yeah, so Chinese internet's up 10%. U.S. internet's up 9.3%. Part of that, I think, will definitely earnings driven. Also, oil and gas names actually outperformed what I like to refer to as dirty energy, outperformed clean energy. But listen, we're talking about fractionally here, 8.8%. Still, I mean, that's very good. Crude rallied this week pretty decently. Also, the banks were up 8%, right? And part of that is the catalyst. We'll also show I think there's a really interesting development going on here. I've talked about it a lot, but this move higher in interest rates, right? So again, we're looking at bond futures on the long end of the curve. Remember, because I get this question from time to time. When we talk about interest rates, I'm not talking about short-term interest rates. I'm talking about long-term interest rates, right? So those, it looks like the yield curve is kind of steepening now, right? So that's usually typically good for banks, right? And some other areas of the market too. But yeah, and since this was our level back here, right? This 176, and that's starting to move down. Now, is it such a big move in interest rates? No, not really, because this is where we were back in the beginning of the year of 2020. Right, so we're just kind of finally giving this up a little bit. Also, the VIX. So three things that I talked about last Friday. Right, again, what a difference a week makes. Right, the VIX, we closed at 30. Let me get out of this. Wow, look at the weekly bar, by the way, for the VIX. Crazy stuff there. Actually, it looks very similar to this week too. Back in the right before the election too. Right. But yeah, I mean, look at that thing. We're all the way at 20. If you would have told me that on Friday, like, hey, do you think the VIX is going to be back at 20? If you would have asked me that question last Friday, do you think I would have been able to say yes and that? Again, crystal ball reading and all that stuff is garbage, right? There's no way I could have predicted, first of all, the events that happened last week, and then for all of them to be basically undone in a small amount of time. Now, what I think was really interesting about that last week is, and what may have been overlooked a little bit, is that hedge funds had to really reduce their positions, right? So I believe one of the articles that I read this weekend said that one of the articles that I read said that hedge funds positioning had went down to a very low level, right? Because they got clobbered last week, right? So this week, I think they were forced to put a lot of that exposure back on, right? If you look at the performance of some of these things, only XRT, which by the way, this relationship held up, right? We talked about that too, GME or XRT, down 10%. And SPY was up 4.8%. So, it's just interesting. I don't think that relationship is going to last forever, but it did. It lasted this week, and then that was the only sector, in my screen that was negative for the day. Excuse me, for the week. This is for the week, right? And also, home builders were, even though interest rates going up a little bit, home builders still up 7%. They were actually one of the best performing sectors today, right? And then, of course, here's your international performance. If you had all your money in Turkey, congratulations. I always say that. I'm joking, but India was very strong. That IBN bank had very strong numbers, and they went up decently. In case you don't know what I'm referring to, I talked about this name earlier in the week. This is an India bank that jumped on earnings and has kept going, following through. All right, so that's this week's performance for the day. Yeah, there's your home builders. Biotech was also very strong. So again, a lot of areas, right? There's a couple things that were down. A few areas that were down. The semiconductors have been weak. This week, generally, they did not have the best performance. So we'll keep an eye on that for next week. Your pot stocks were down a little bit too after some good gains earlier in the week. All right, so that's this week's performance. Here's our new spreadsheet that we have someplace. Someplace I have it. Whoops, what did I do with this? Why can't I? Here we go. All right, so here's our spreadsheet. So I talked about that watch list trade, right? So here's what it did for this week. I have to double check this performance for the year. I have to just make sure it foots to my account value. But 7% for the week. Look at some of these names in here. I did so some of these again. What I'm doing is I am putting on as swing trades, and of course I still have this as as a trade in itself, right? So I'm using this in two different ways. Number one, I'm using this M1 finance system where I'm holding these names for the week and earning all that performance. And number two, I will take some of these as swing trades, right? So, for example, I took Zoom Communications. I know this Zoom video got a lot of attention today. Took out a virgin point of control, took out a couple of virgin point of controls, and managed to stay above them. So I put on a small trade to participate in case there's further upside. But here's your virgin point of control taken out, and this continued to go through. So there's not another one until 518, which is way up here. But I think you could see some continuation. So I did put on a trade for next week. I put on a call spread for next week to see if Zoom video, but anything Zoom, right? Look at Zoom Communications. So very strong, and all right, here you go. So yeah, up up 21%. But look at all some of the other names. SE, which I own all over the place. I own this in the TTG Trend Portfolio, up 15% for the week. Monster. I got out of this in my trading account yesterday. I was happy with the gains. I talked about that in yesterday's video, but I owned it in two other places. So thank goodness, up another 5%. So again, one of my favorite names. Has been one of my favorite names for a while. Beautiful trend. But look at some of the other names we picked. Okta. Okta was only up 8.5%. Pure Storage was up 16% for the week. Chewy had a nice week, up 8%. I mean, I don't know why because this is benchmarked to Monday. That's why. This is Whoops. Whoa. It's benchmarked to Monday. So this watch list, by the way, is benchmarked to Monday's open, not Friday's close, because we're buying it on Monday's open. All right, but still, regardless, really nice, and that's how we want to end the week. All right, so on Sunday I will be constructing a new list and going through that exercise again. I already have a handful of names that will be on there. We talked about them in today's member Q&A session. So yeah, I mean, I'll share with you one name that I think is really interesting, but Cloudflare, right? This is a name that's kind of had a really nice run, and this is what we're seeing all over the place. I could give you 5 other names that look similar to this, right? Nice run up. Now back and forth price action and leaning to the upside. Now it failed making the leg higher here, but we're at the point of we're at the scene of the crime again, and we have earnings coming up on the 11th. So I think this thing runs into earnings. I'll be long, right? And we'll see how that goes. Okay. So that'll be a name that'll be on the watch list. Other trades that I did today, again, I always show the trade blotter today. Starbucks, my goodness, right? I got lucky, got an upgrade today. So, another 2% after yesterday, 2.7% after yesterday's gains. I took about half that position off now for gains. A couple other, Shop was a trade that I was looking for a pre-earnings run. Listen, I could have kept this on for next week. It's a $20 wide call spread. I took it off for $10, right? I was gonna think about putting another trade back on, but and by the way, this is one of those names that looks like Cloudflare, right? Not exactly the same way, but move higher, back and forth, now out to new highs again. But that name reports next week. But for now, I did not put anything back on in that one. LTHM got my first target there. Palantir, which I dumped at the end of the day. Datadog looks pretty good too. Another name. right? Breaking out of the range here. Reports next week. Again, I'm looking for further upside into the earnings print. I still have on a good portion of that trade as well. And then, like I said, I try to take off some things, right? I got out of my whole ZI position 58, so I may be leaving some money on the table. Here's my Zoom trade. Like I said, I put on a small call spread that expires next week. And CELH started to perk up too, right? This was a trade that I put on. Look at this thing, right? So finally, right? This is one where I had to go back and forth with. I think I took the trade off once last week. I didn't like what it was doing, but went back in this week, and it worked pretty nicely. So that's it. I'm gonna end the video here for the week. Like I said, if you're not a member of Tribeca Trade Group, I mean, this is a lot of fun, right? That weeks like this, there's no doubt about it. I would say one other note that I wanted to end on, right? Last week was a tough week for me. It was a stressful week. There was a lot of noise, and of course, this week was a much better week. But I'll tell you, if you are still learning, right? If this is new to you, right, and you got caught in some of these short squeeze names last week, right? It happens, right? I talked about too how I had a trading mistake about a week ago too, which kind of messed up some of a little bit of my January performance. But listen, it happens. I've made so many mistakes over the years, and that's why I've gotten to the point that I've gotten to, right? It's called a little bit of tuition, right? You have to make some mistakes, so if you bought GameStop or something at the wrong price, it's you learn from it. Don't get upset at the market and say this game is rigged or it's unfair. It's all part of learning, right? And developing a system, it takes a while to do that. We had a great webinar earlier in the week with Oliver Kell, who won that U.S. Investing Championship, which I mentioned a couple times now. But I think same thing with him. It took him probably a while to get to the point, where he's got his system down. So that's what I try to do for members. I try to share some of the things that I do and kind of bring up that learning curve. So if you're a newer trader and you want to get more of a handle on trying to become better without making, first of all, you're going to make mistakes, right? So, and that money, if you lost some money on some trades on that stuff, it is what's known as trading tuition, right? You actually need to make some mistakes to learn, right? And not you can't paper trade and make mistakes and have the same feel, have the same emotion with it. So, it's part of the game, and this is what we do. We basically try to, I try to help traders avoid some of those mistakes. I had a question, for example, on this stock this week, right? Sava, right? I don't know this name, right? This name, is a small cap biotech name, went from $10 to $100. Somebody asked me about it yesterday morning saying, hey, what would be your price target? I have no clue on something like this. There's no way I could come up with a price target on something that does this, right? So if you could catch a little bit of a profit if you get lucky in something like this, but you have to realize these things are not normal, right? And so again, if you could make a little bit of money on something like this, if you were in it and you chased a little bit and it went from $20 to $40, congratulations. But you can't figure out where these things are going to go when something goes from $10 to $100 and you're looking for the next 50 points, right? That's more on the side of gambling than anything else, right? That's not necessarily trading, right? Again, big momentum, you catch it, but you can't look at this thing at $80 and say, oh, this thing could go up to 200. I'm buying at 80, right? That's not really, that's not what we do. So it's much more defined than that. And listen, I like to catch winners like this type of thing, but there's a lot more to it than just looking at what name is flying and saying, hey, I'm going to stick my neck out and see if it goes from $60 to 100. right? So there's a lot more. There's a lot more to it. There's a lot more process. There's a lot more discipline. And you have to know names, right? I mean, you have to kind of, I mentioned this SE name that I've been in and out of, and also holding a core position in it. But you get to know names after a while. And, when I originally put this into the TTG Trend Portfolio in October, right, it was at a high point then, right? It was at like $150. My original cost basis. Once I finally, now I had traded it a bunch of times before that, but I didn't make it, I didn't make it a member of the TTG Trend Portfolio until it was around 150 after this move already. But this is a methodical move, right? Breaking out, right? Coming back, testing 50-day moving average, breaking back, testing 20-day moving average, testing 20-day moving average, and it's just continued to go, right? So it's at this point probably due for a check back, but you know these are the types of things that I'm looking that have a pretty good story to them, right? And that continue to kind of make new highs, right? Check back, make new highs, check back, make new highs. So anyway, I'll leave it there for the weekend, but I just wanted to say that for whatever reason, if you had either a tough week last week or this week, it's part of the game, and you look to improve, right, and become better, and get your system down sound, so that you can begin to make the same good decisions over and over and over. Doesn't mean you're going to get caught in a trade. It just means you're making better decisions to minimize those mistakes. All right, guys, have a great weekend, and I'll see you on Monday. Hope to see you as a TTG member.